The year was 1956. Ford passenger cars for 1956 were slightly upgraded from their 1955 predecessors, with the big change coming ahead in the following year for 1957. Ford included many models for this year, with the top of the line being the Crown Victoria, which included this wonderful moon or sunroof up above. Ford was also quite a bit of a safety pioneer back in the mid-50s with these wonderful features like the sunken down steering wheel so that you wouldn't get hurt if you were in a head-on collision by the center of the steering column hitting your chest. You also had the padded dashboards, the safety locks, and the seat belts in order to keep you safe. But at this point in time, a lot of people were more interested in flashy chrome than they were with safety features. So these were not really as popular as you would have thought for back in the time. Whereas now, this would have been seen as revolutionary for the safety. A promising young Ford salesman in Pennsylvania named Lee Iacocca concocted a novel campaign to jumpstart sales. A 56 for 56, meaning a 56 Ford for $56 a month. The gimmick was a huge success, and Ford General Manager Robert McNamara soon applied the idea nationwide. The 1956 Fords wore a subtle facelift that included a wide great grille and horizontal parking lights in wraparound chrome pods. The 56 Ford Fairlane Sunliner was the convertible version of the car, and Revell actually made this in 1/32 scale, which I have a video of on my channel for you to check out. The 1956 Ford was also built in Canada and known as the Mercury Meteor. The Meteor had different chrome up front as well as on the sides because Canadians really love their chrome, and the Meteor looked like this. Ford had three engine choices for 1956, the first one being the overhead valve inline 6, the second being the 292 cubic inch V8, and finally the 312 cubic inch V8. Up in Canada, the Mercury Meteor had the same engine cubic inch sizes. However, instead of being painted red with a silver air cleaner, they were painted teal and had a gold air cleaner and looked like this. Here we have AMT Ertl's 1956 Ford Victoria Hardtop, and this model kit came out in 1989. However, there is a new version that looks like this. This model is a skill level 2 kit in 1/25th scale and has posable front wheels and the option of adding in the glass roof and the Victoria trim. Back in 1989, AMT Ertl included all these specifications on the side of the model kit boxes, so here we read model kit specifications for 1956 Ford Victoria Hardtop. The type is a two-door pillarless hardtop. The engine is a Y-block overhead valve V8. For options, we have dual 4-barrel carburetors, custom valve covers, custom exhaust manifold. Transmission is a 3-speed manual. The wheels and tires are stock wheel covers, Firestone tires. Options: spoke wheels, rear deep mags, baby moon covers, rear Goodyear racing tires. Exterior options include front and rear rolled pan, front and rear custom grille, hood ornament, side pipes, custom taillights, Crown Victoria trim. Interior options are custom bucket seats, console, gauges, racing seatbelt. Parts: over 170 parts, full color decals. Paint and cement is not included. This side of the box shows a few pictures of our model kit, and what we have here is the racing version with the mag wheels, the exhaust pipes, as well as the 2 scoops and no bumper. Here we have the custom version with the trim shaved off the sides, lowered down with some baby moon hubcaps on stock rims, and the bumpers and bumper lights have been painted over in body color, which was very popular back in '89. Here we have the stock interior and our detailed racing engine with the 2 4-barrel carburetors with the scoops coming up on these riser pipes. This end of the box gave the story of the 56 Ford Victoria Hardtop. And here we read the 55 and 56 Fords were a big break from the past, introducing such notable features as a new Y-block V8 overhead valve engine and Thunderbird styling. The two-tone paint scheme added zest to an already impressive car. Popular with Ford fans, the Victoria was a major contender in the Ford versus Chevy debates of the 50s. In 1956, Ford added power to its V8 by offering an optional dual 4-barrel intake and factory dual exhausts. The bullet taillights identified the car even at night and became a Ford trademark for years. This diverse kit includes parts for the prize stock Victoria, a personalized street machine, and a heavy-duty racer. Now let's take the lid off our 56 Ford Victoria and see what we've got in here. Right away we have our instruction sheet, and here you can see the custom version with the trim removed. We also have the chassis and frame. We've got our body and the interior is tucked up inside here. And then we've got all our white plastic components in this bag. We also have our glass, looking pretty fine. We've got 2 chrome parts trees in here, held together with this bag in the middle. And then we've got our red components, taillights and such. We also have our tires down here, which also include drag slicks and axles. We've got a blueprinter form here, which I don't think is around anymore. But again, this model's from '89, right when Batman came out. And that was starring Michael Keaton. And then there we've got our decals, which we'll take a look at the end. Here we have the instruction sheet for our AMT Ertl 1956 Ford Victoria with some really cool looking disco letters here from the 70s. And you can see this wonderful drawing where we have the chrome trim removed. I do believe this is more of the gasser kind here, where you have the front end lifted up and the back end dragging, and no bumper. And no hood ornament there, just the hole for it. And down below we have the write-up, which was basically on the side of the box. This is just a little bit more expanded. Our instruction sheet folds out into a gigantic roadmap style that takes up quite a lot of room. But what we have down below here is the important before you begin steps. Read this first. We also have the hobby tools that you will need in order to build this. Basically your hobby knife, tweezers, and cement. And this section is for the beginner modeler. Down below we have the building tips for the advanced modeler, which includes using sandpaper going up to 1200 grit and many other great tips. Our first illustration shows the engine assembly for stock and custom. So down here is the stock. We'll take a look at that first. You have a right and left hand side engine block with transmission and starter motor molded in place, followed by the oil pan, which is chrome plated, which you may need to strip down if you're going to do this factory stock. We have the generator, the fan belt and pulleys, the fan, the engine front cover, the upper radiator hose, and then we have the stock intake manifold, which is number 27. We have the 4-barrel carburetor, it's a single one, the air cleaner, distributor going in the back, and then we've got right and left hand side cylinder heads with the stock valve covers up above. We've got our exhaust manifolds, will be a right and left, and then exhaust pipe extensions. Now going up here, we have the custom version, which has a dual carb manifold, radiator hose upper, which is the same, number 20. We also have 2 4-barrel carburetors and this custom air cleaner, which has little bumps where the carburetors go. Our second engine assembly is the racing engine. And again, we have our right and left hand side engine blocks with the transmission, the oil pan. We have headman headers with the extension coming out the back and the exhaust dump being glued on. Here we have our generator, fan belt, front cover, and fan, upper radiator hose, the dual carb manifold, the 4-barrel carburetors, and then we have the short carb intake in the front and the long one in the back, followed by the 2 air scoops. We have custom Thunderbird style valve covers for our cylinder heads, and the distributor as well goes in the back. For all of you wishing to super detail your engine block, here we've got the Ford timing for 1956, and we have it starting with spark plug 1, going 5, 4, 8, 6, 3, 7, 2, and on the engine block it would be spark plug 1, spark plug 5, spark plug 4, spark plug 8, spark plug 6, spark plug 3, spark plug number 7, And then this one is spark plug 2 right there. And for our Chilton manual from 1954 to 1963, we see our 56 Ford engines right here. So we had a choice of a 223 6-cylinder, as well as a 272 overhead valve 2-barrel carburetor V8 engine. Down here we've got the 292 overhead valve 4-barrel carburetor engine. That's a single 4-barrel. And then right below it is the 312 overhead valve 4-barrel carb engine. The second assembly step is our wheel assembly, and this is for stock, custom, and racing. So this section right here is the stock and custom. So starting with the stock, we have front wheel covers and rear wheel covers, 2 of each, going into the tire here, and then the wheel back would sandwich in from behind, and basically you've got a sandwich. Front wheel cover, wheel, and wheel back. Now for the custom, we have the front wheel and the which go in there, and then of course the baby moon hubcaps, and then again it's wheel, tire, back. So this is basically the front wheel will have the little cone out here, which is the cover for the ball bearings, and then we've got the baby moon hubcap, which would go on if you're doing the custom. Now over here we have our racing wheel. So we've got these spokes. There's an inner and an outer, and they would go through the stock tire. And then in the back it shows 2-piece racing slicks, but in this kit we actually have the single slick, and we've got the deep rear wheel going in through there, as well as a wheel back in the back. Panel 3 shows our chassis assembly, and what we start off with is the chassis pan. We also have the drive shaft here, 2 shock absorbers left and right, 2 traction bars left and right if you're going to build this as a drag racing car. Those would mount on the frame back here and to the tops of these leaf springs on our differential. So we have a differential with leaf springs molded in place. There's a top and bottom to this. We also have our rear brake drums right and left, and once that's all aligned, you can put your metal axle right through there. And always remember to round the edges off on the metal axles so that you remove the burrs from the cutting process of that axle. The second portion of chassis assembly number 3 is for our front suspension, and this is operational, and what it says is, for proper steering and wheel rotation, build this carefully. So what we see is the front of the chassis, and it says insert A-arm unit into slot in front of chassis. Locate tie rod ends to kingpins. Note rods should angle upward, so be careful there. So what we have is the lower A-arm unit. We've got our kingpins right and left with the front axle spindle there and there. And then we've got our brake drums, and they have a little pin on them. So we'll take a look at that in a second here. And then we've got our wheel, so it's going to go kingpin, brake drum, wheel, and then push your spindle through this. The other thing is to push the spindle through here, and then add a little tiny bit of glue right to the very end, and hold this tight against the brake drum and put the wheel on, wait for the glue to dry. And be careful that you don't glue it here so your wheel never rotates. We also have springs and our tie rod. So all this will be put together and then go up in here on the chassis. Then afterwards you locate your engine, and there's a little cradle right there on this brace, as well as a hole in the back where the transmission is going to line up. So going over here, you have a choice between stock and raise positions on these kingpins. So if you put the pin through the top hole, and there's a little pin on the brake drum, as you can see, which goes in the bottom hole, then you'll have the stock ride height. But if you flip this upside down and put the pin through the bottom hole, you'll have it lowered. So make sure you know which way you want this to go before you start gluing things together. Our instruction sheet continues with the interior assembly, and this is the stock version in this box, and we've got racing and custom over in this box. So let's first focus on the stock build. So what we have here is the interior bucket, and it's got the door panels cut out of it, which is really unique. There is the brake and the gas pedal molded into the floor, and we've got these two little ring tabs to hook up into the body. So what we have is a two-piece front bench seat, a single rear seat, and those would drop in on these little hole things. And on the back we have the instrument panel. We've got our steering column, which goes through the brake and clutch pedals, which is interesting. It shows it on the floor here. That's an automatic, looks like. We've got our steering column, and then we've got our steering wheel and the horn ring. Now over on the racing side of things, we have the same interior bucket, of course. Now let's take a look at the custom pieces. We've got the console and then this insert which goes up here, which also has our Elco shift lever going into it. We've got a two-piece armrest for the back. We've got these really cool Star Trek style bucket seats. There's 4 of them. They go here, here, and then there's pins in the back as well. We also have our instrument panel, a tachometer, custom gauges, the foot pedals again, the steering column, a custom steering wheel. This one has 4 spokes, whereas the stock one has 3. We also have lap belts and a shoulder belt. Now you can use these lap belts over on the stock side because that was one of the safety features in 56 that Ford had. But overall, you could build a really cool car. Now for the drag racer, I would suggest removing this custom console and only using one of the bucket seats where the driver would be. And unfortunately, there's no roll bar for this, but you could always make your own. Now down here, we have some suggestions for painting your interior. It says popular interior color schemes were in two-tone. Body color seat inserts, door panels, floorboards, rear deck and dash, white seat trim, and steering wheel. Some color choices were white and pink, white and black, white and aqua, white and blue. Ford had a lot of colors, and so did the Canadian Mercury Meteor. So always do some internet research to figure out what color scheme you like for your interior. Over here it says paint racing interior black. Ooh, very boring. Paint custom interior the color of your choice. So here we have the body going together. We've got our completed interior, and it says hood hinge will contact in here. We've got our front windshield, the optional moonroof. Now you would have to cut that out on the body. And we have the rear clear window. For Crown Victoria version, carefully cut out front roof panel at score line. Now over here we see underneath the hood, we've got our heater motor being glued in place. We've got our battery on this side and the upper radiator tank. And then the radiator shroud itself will glue in place right up front there. We have opening doors and hood on this model. So we've got the left door right here, and it says door left body color, door right body color. So they're using 2 images for one here. We've got clear window vents being glued into the frame, and then the door panel goes over top of this. And down below we see the door being placed inside the body, and here we have a door hinge retainer, 2 for each side, and it shows you here how it's supposed to go with this tab connecting to the body and the little half circle holding the 2 pins for the door hinge in place. And right here we've got the hood. It says note open hole in hood to clear racing air scoops if you're building this as a dragster. Body colors top, flat black on the bottom, and we've got our hood hinges being glued into these little square holes here, which will get trapped in under the body. It says body color schemes were done in 2-tone. Hood, trunk, and sides of body above trim was white. Roof and side of body below trim came in various colors. Some of the more popular choices were black, aqua, pink, and blue. And again, just like the Fords of this era, they were done in many different color schemes, same as the Mercury Meteors for Canada. So take a look at how they look on the internet. In panel 6, we see the final assembly for stock, and starting here at the back, we've got our trunk emblem being glued on the trunk, license plate which gets glued right in the center down here. We also have the stock taillight bezels, there's one for each side, stock taillights, and then rear bumper guards being glued in place, and the rear bumper glues onto the back. And down in this picture we see the front of the car. We've got the front splash pan being glued in on the chassis rails. Then we've got our parking lights left and right hand side, which get glued in this part of the grille. Got our stock grille being glued in place. The bumper goes onto the front splash pan. We also have the headlight shroud outer, the clear lens, and the headlight bezel being sandwiched together and then glued in on the body. We've got the two-piece hood ornament, the shell and the spear going together, and then the Crown Victoria side pillars. That's in 3 spots, which go there. Now, you're only going to use this if you actually cut the hole in the roof. Otherwise, if not, then there's no sense in this bread basket right there, bread basket handle. And then we've got our stock antenna being put right there. Here we have the final assemblies for the custom version, and what we have is a custom front grille going into a front rolled pan, and you'll need some putty in order to set this in properly. We've got the stock style headlights, so you've got the outer shroud, the clear lens. Remember to make these lenses go north, south, east, and west for the grills, and not off at some angle. We've got the chrome bezel going in behind. All this goes into that hole. We've got our hood ornament spear and, of course, the shell. We have 2 spotlights for right and left hand side. We've got a sunken antenna. It says locate a hole in left fender. And then we've got the Crown Vic roof molding and side piece, as well as side pipes down below, and then side pipe shrouds, which was a very cool late 50s, early 60s customizing trick. And then here we've got custom Mercury taillights with custom Mercury lenses being glued up top. Or you can use these custom billet taillights with a bullet in the back. And then down below we've got a rear rolled pan and the custom rear grille. Down here we have the final assembly for racing, and we've got our stock taillight bezels and stock taillights and the rear bumper being glued in place. And here you would open up your wheel arch in order to fit those great big slicks in there. And we've also got a thing saying remove this area for the drag dumps. So you cut a little half circle out the front just behind the rear wheel opening, and that's for these to go through. And you've got your parking lights and your front grille, just like in the stock version, being put together. You could also leave this area open, because drag racers, they would have ripped the chrome out of there just for lightweight. We have no hood ornament. We've got the hole in the hood. And we do have our headlight, shroud, clear lens, and bezel, again, going in place. You got the stock grille, the side marker lights, the front bumper, and the splash pan all going in there, if you so choose to use them, because, like, again, I was saying, dragsters, they like to strip all this down for speed. Now, one thing that is cool about this model kit is that AMT has included some parts in order to make the model kit look more like a Canadian Mercury Meteor. And the really cool part is this big Canadian Meteor grill bar, which is a big swoosh. Now, it says final assembly optional custom, but it really is the Mercury Meteor in a way, because the Meteor never had this side trim like the Ford does. So basically you need to strip this off unless you're making the Redoubt, which has this piece of trim up to around here, and then it swishes down here and it would come across to the center of the headlight with trim. But for the standard Meteor and the Meteor Niagara, this entire piece has to come off, and you'll have to fabricate trim for the Niagara. But at any rate, what we have is the splash pan, the front bumper, and the side parking lights, right and left. And then the Meteor grill is going to glue in here. And one thing I've been looking at on the internet is that you're going to have to cut a portion of the top bar off here and glue it to the edge of the hood. So you want to cut it, of course, where the hood's going to open, right? And then you glue your bar here on this edge and there on that edge, and then the swoop goes down below. So when the guy opens the hood, this piece of the bar goes up with the hood, and you can see, like, you could put your fist down where the top part of this V is. Actually, this is like the Canada Goose in flight, you know. Anyway, so that's where that goes. And then there is like a starburst that you would have to make out of evergreen styrene. And the tip of the starburst goes into the cradle of the V, and the other part goes up here. The Ford emblem gets removed. So we also have our hood ornament spear and the shell being glued in place. There is a Rideau with the Crown Victoria roof molding in it. So if you want to build that, keep it. Otherwise, I think there is an open pillar one, and most of them had pillars in the doors, so you're going to have to fabricate that using evergreen styrene. But I have an idea for that. When I build this for the Canada Strong group build, I'm going to show you how to do it. And we also have the sunken antenna going into the hole on the fender. So overall, if you more or less follow this and then catch my video as I'm building this for the Canada Strong group build, you'll see how the Meteor actually goes together. Finally, we have our decal placement, and here you can see the car that was basically drawn in the instructions on the very front with everything shaved off here. Now this is what the base model Meteor would be like, all shaved off, and then it would have the V down here. And here we have the decals showing half the size. So you got these yellow basic pinstripe things, and basically according to that side box they go like this on the car. So again, something interesting. There's two license plates, and then the good old I Love Model Cars decal. So we'll take a look at that coming up, but first let's look at the plastic parts, see how they stack up. Here we have the body for our 1956 Ford, as well as for the 56 Mercury Meteor up in Canada. What we have is a nice opening right here, which has the firewall molded in place, as well as the side fender aprons, the windshield washer reservoir, as well as some wires in here. We also have the full radiator without the top, of course, and there is quite a bit of flash. We've got the trim going down along the sides. We've got the hardtop roof, but we also have the cowl, which doesn't have the vents there, but it does have the windshield wipers. Maybe there wasn't any vents then. Now looking at the side here, we've got the trim going across here, goes all the way into the door panel. Now on the top of the line Mercury Rideau in Canada, you can actually use this portion of the trim. It's exactly the same, except somewhere along right about here it curves down, and then it fires back up and goes along here out to the front instead of going up on the top of the fender and rolling down like the Ford one does. There are some weird sort of like plastic bits in this. If you look at the door down here, it looks like it's burnt, but it's actually a bit of black plastic pellets that fell into the mix in the mixing process and gave it this marble effect. That actually would have been cool if it went through the whole body here. But at any rate, now here you can kind of see in the roof, oh yeah, there's a little slot which goes right around here like this, and that you cut out for the wonderful Victoria window. But if you don't want to use the clear glass, you do have the molded in sun visors right there, as well as 4 beautiful mold marks which you'll have to clear out with your hobby blade. Same with back in here, and up in here, and in the wheel arches, and in the fenders. So you want to clear all that out so A, it looks realistic, and B, those don't interfere with anything. And up in the body you can also see that wheel arch right in there. Maybe you can't, I don't know, but there it is, and you would cut that out for your slicks. And it doesn't really show that half curve section that you're supposed to notch out for the hot dragster pipes, but it does have little sunken in areas, and that's where the hood hinge is going to roll into there. We have this X-brace in the doors, and you'll have to cut that out. They just put this in here at AMT so that this wouldn't collapse in here or distort when you pulled it off the parts tree. Out back, it's completely smooth, but you will have to get rid of the seam lines up and around here. A little sink mark right in there. And there are some little possible sink mark areas right here and here, and that coincides with these posts down there. Anything in the quarter panels? No, there's a little emblem right there for the V8 up front. Looks pretty good. Got the holes there for mounting that front brace that goes on the front there. And yeah, overall pretty good. Firewall detail looks good. You can see the wiring back in there. Yeah, overall this looks quite nice and should work out fine for your project. Here we have the interior tub, and like I was saying, it's got the cutouts for the door in here, and it does actually have that automatic pedal down below as well as the standard gas pedal. So if you wanted to make this into an automatic, you could just leave that pedal in and paint it, but if you want to do it as a standard, I would suggest taking that number 16 hobby blade, the angled chisel one, and then scraping this thing right off of here so that no one looks in and sees double pedals going on. Here's the little tubes for the seats to fit in. The back has this wonderful pattern in here. Looks kind of like, looks almost like 3D print in a weird way. You can see it there. But basically, if you're building the dragster version, you can cut these little beams or posts out of here, 1, 2, 3, and just use this one for that custom seat. It's got nice carpet detail molded in, 2 holes for the console, which of course would have to be filled over for the stock version. The door panels are molded in place. You got the windshield crank right there, as well as the chrome trim for the two-tone. Again, doesn't look too bad. Got to get rid of some of the flash and attachment points. Underneath is nice and flat. Looks pretty good. And once it's together and in that interior, the whole thing assembled, this thing looks excellent. Here's our chassis, and you can see the full perimeter frame, which is prototypical to the Ford of that era. We have these really cool looking mufflers right here. And they've got these ribs going across, and then you've got your tailpipes leading out to the back. They just sort of disappear. Oh, no, wait, I'm looking at this wrong. They go up here, and then down in the front, we've got the whole steering assembly, the brace to mount the engine, and the transmission one back here. All this will have to be cleaned up of your flash. Now, looking at the frame rails, there are no sink marks or mold marks there, so that's good. We've got this little area where the leaf springs are going, really tiny gas tank right here, and the little area for our spare tire. Now, if you're really ingenious, you could actually cut that trunk open so that you have all 4 items opening, the hood, the doors, and the trunk lid. But of course, you'll have to fabricate a wall back in here and make a floor. Keep this area open for your tire, of course. But yeah, basically do your research on what the trunks look like and go for it. Here you can see the tops where the springs would be sitting in on those upper A-arms. And again, the hole for the springs down there and the little hole for your steering arrangement. Overall, it's a bit simplistic looking, but it's also quite practical for the steering. And once you get the wheels in there and aligned, this thing works beautifully. Now, the first parts tree includes engine parts for our either 292 or 312 cubic inch engine, depending on how you want to build this thing. We have right and left hand side engine blocks. We've also got the oil filter molded in place and the starter motor over here. Got our belts and pulleys. We've got 2 intake manifolds, one for the single 4-barrel and one for dual 4 barrels. We also have the valve covers with Ford molded in place and the V8. Now, these would have to be cleaned up if you're doing the Mercury, because it's going to say something different on there. There we've got the big dual carburetors and the extension pipes for those little scoops go on the motor. Upper radiator hose, we've got our timing chain and water pump cover. And then here we've got our cylinder heads. We've also got our battery. And the battery protrudes out a little bit from the body, which is interesting. We have the exhaust dumps there with a couple little mold sink marks in, which have to be fixed up. Got our air cleaner and custom exhaust pipe, the manifold, custom exhaust manifold. Got the stock manifolds. These ones fell off. And then we've got our heater blower motor right here. So bringing this up to the camera. Now, if you're building this as a Mercury Meteor, Ford painted their engine blocks red, but the Meteors had them as a teal color, and the air cleaner was gold. So, and the regular Ford one was, of course, silver. Oh, I've also got the distributor cap right down here. Yeah, so basically that's the difference between them. Now historically, I don't know if it had a dual intake manifold. You'll have to look that up. You can see Ford written on here. Very nicely done for AMT. There's the 3-speed manual with the long gate in the back here. So again, really pretty cool stuff. You'd have to open up the little air cleaner pipe right there with a drill in order to make it look realistic and like it would actually suck air into there. Overall, not bad. Might be some mold marks on the back. Make sure this is especially flat so it'll go onto the engine and look nice. Overall, though, it's quite a neat little motor for the kit. Here I've got 2 parts trees. So this one includes this, which looks like a plastic axle. I'm not totally sure what it is exactly. Could also be to help hold the hood up, although it looks excessively long. At any rate, here's the hood. There's the brake drums and the wheel backs. The stock steering wheel. We've got the back of the bench seat. We've also got the armrest portion of the console. These little things here are the axle pins, so be careful not to lose them. We've got the coil springs, the steering column, and then the top brace, which is hooking the fenders together in the front. And then here we've got the shock absorbers, we've got the hood hinges, and one of the covers for the lake pipes. We also have the tie rod right here. So remember to make sure you get that in the right way. Now bringing this up to the camera, you can see the Ford logo right there. And that'll have to come off if you're building the Mercury Meteor. And then we've got the springs right there. The top looks really nice, looks like the real thing. We've got a couple of little squares in there. And on the other side, you can see the detailing of the hood, the little mats back here, and the mold marks you have to get rid of. Up front, it actually has some of the ribbing in there. It's got the little grips on the back of the steering wheel for your fingers to go in like the real car. And that's basically about it. So overall, oh, it's also got these little sunken in areas, and that's for those hinges to go into. Overall, it's looking pretty good. And then here, tie rods and these shock absorbers, they're all pretty nice. There's a little mold mark on the shock absorbers on the one side, so make sure you round up the plastic and make it look like a cylinder as it's supposed to. Again, overall, these little parts are nice and look good when painted. Now here I've got a parts tree with a few other pieces as well. So I got the license plate right here, more of the brake drums. These ones go on the front. We also have the stock wheels, and these, of course, are no hubcaps. We have the wheel backs as well, some more of them. We've got the front bench seat, as well as the little extensions for the exhaust dumps. These will go from the manifold out to the actual pipes. And we've got our dashboard with a lot of flash. And we also have the front splash apron. Now, some of you may be wondering, okay, if I'm going to build the Mercury Meteor, do I have to change this upholstery pattern and the dashboard and everything else? Well, the simple answer is not at all. You do not have to change anything on the interior because the interiors were the same between the two countries. Here we've got a mold mark on the back of the license plate, so you have to sand that flat in order to make that work. And there are mold marks on the back of the wheels as well. So make sure those are all flattened down before you put them together so that they don't hold anything away from where it needs to be glued. Nice texture on the seats, just like the real thing, only smaller. And then getting into the dashboard, you can see it's like a cluster of gauges, whereas the earlier year it actually had a rolling gauge up here, as well as a little glass piece up there for the light. Or maybe it was flat in the glass piece. Well, anyway, you get the idea. This is the correct dashboard. There is a little bit of what looks like writing on the dashboard door in there, which would have to come off for the Canadian one. Ooh, there's a big massive mold mark right in here. A real tight spot for it. Same as on the other side. So make sure you get that. Flash is interesting. And then we've got the front splash apron right here. On the bottom looks good, has the bumper brackets. And up top has the bit to cover the bumper brackets from sticking out. And these little holes to mount up on the bottom of the car for extra support. So overall, all these parts look pretty nice. and look even better once the model is built. This parts tree includes a custom front end. It also has a drive shaft right here and the rear rolled pan. We've got our rear axle with the springs, our front kingpins up here, the headlights. We also have the racing seat belt and the stock seat belt. Now, like I was saying, if you have some extras of these in the parts box, by all means use them, because this was really one of the early years where Ford was experimenting with safety features, and seat belts were part of it. We've got a center console right here, which looks really futuristic, with the holes for the armrest in the back and the rear bench seat. And I've also included the upper differential right here, which fell off in the box. Anyway, you can see the upholstery pattern is continued from the front seat to the back in order to make it match. There's some nice ribbing in here. That would look cool with mask this top edge off and use your Molotow chrome pen right in there. It's got what looks like it could be a dual gate shifter going up in here. Maybe it's some gauges. Have to look at that chrome part. The the drive shaft looks nice with the two universals at each end. Let's turn this over. The springs look nice in there. The only thing is this funny height in here. I know Pete would have that cut down a little bit somehow. At any rate, there's the springs. There's mold buttons on the very tops. I believe they could also be the center shackle bolt. So make sure you look that up before you start removing some of the bumps off here, just in order to make sure you didn't cut off the center shackle. And there's a seat belt. Again, some really classy looking stuff on here, which makes your model all that much better. Here we have the last few plastic components for the kit molded in white, and we've got our right and left hand side doors here. We've also got the pedals, which include the brake and the clutch, and we've got the door hinges. We've got the little shroud for the lake pipes. We also have the lower A arms. Here we've got these cool Star Trek seats. These remind me of the original series seats of the Bridge of the Enterprise. Yeah, I think pretty much, yeah, they're pretty cool. And then we've got the inner door panels. And like I was saying before, there are no differences between the Mercury Meteor and the Ford on the inner door panels. So it was basically the same upholstery design. It's just the trim on doors and that body that changes. No one of these fell out, so you can see what I mean. This is just like the perfect. You can see Uhura sitting in here, monitoring the transmissions coming in. I mean, it's really neat. I love these. And there's a little thing to hold them in. Now, some other kits, like the AMT 57 Ford, also have these little hole things that you mount on tubes. So you can save these Star Trek seats for other cool things like that. There's the door panels. You can see the window cranks right in there, as well as that funky chrome trim on there from the 50s. And the padding, they're also deep, and they really hold well in the door jambs on the real model once you get it built. There's the door panels. So this is okay for Ford, not okay for Meteor, because this portion has to be removed and changed, including the Victoria script right there. And then we've got the lower A arms. And there's the pedals and mold mark up there. So this will slot through the steering column and end up looking quite good. So yeah, overall, I think these parts are pretty cool, especially those Star Trek seats. I really like those. Take off, eh? Yeah, they'll be great. This model kit includes 2 complete chrome parts trees with different parts on them. So what we have here is the grille and the front right and left hand side parking lights. Now you can see a flat spot here, and that's where the parking lights mount. You need to remove the chrome off of there and off of the backs of the parking lights in order for that to glue pretty solid. Now, like I was saying, for the Mercury Meteor, you're going to need to put the hood on and put this in place, and then mark where that hood edge goes and the hood edge over here, and then take your hobby blade and basically draw the blade up underneath here and cut this little top bar piece off. That needs to be modified if you're going to be doing the Mercury Meteor, because there is a cross piece in here which looks like a little blast, which looks like this. So anyway, we have the Ford hubcaps right here, which also look like 74 Buick hubcaps, like my dad had on his Century. So if you're ever building a 74 Century, keep that in mind, that these really look a lot like those hubcaps. We also have this drag racing wheel here. This is for lightness in the front. And we've got these little chrome bits back here. We also have the headlight bezels and the moon hubcaps. We've got the fan. We've got the racing steering wheel with the 4 arms. We also have the little injectors. Now these might be the little stacks for the injectors. There's the generator, and we've got the dummy spotlights. We also have Thunderbird valve covers, a chrome oil pan, and the chrome upper radiator, the expansion tank. Okay, so what are these things back here? They are little chrome cylinders. Not exactly sure. Oh, these would be the exhaust dump things. That's what they are. So yeah, there's the chrome you're going to be removing out of here on the back of the parking lights. There are some mold marks in there. This also has a little ridge up in here, which is perfect because that will add a lot to glue on to the hood. So it's not just a little strip. Overall on the back, this looks pretty good. Bring this up around, you can see the Thunderbird right on the valve covers there. Again, some really cool stuff for the chrome that's in this kit. And now let's take a look at the second tree. Here we've got the tail lights. We've got the custom Lincoln ones right there, as well as the stock Ford ones. We've got the 2 little sails for the Victoria handle. We also have the chrome steering wheel ring. This is, of course, where the horn would be. There is the center console. There's a couple cool little buttons here, a little glove box door, as well as where the stick shift's going to be coming out of. There's the chrome wheels for the dragster, as well as the little spokes. So the one with the point goes in the front of this one. And then here we've got the gauge clusters. We've got the top of the armrest, the gear shift, the special custom air cleaner. We've got the traction bars. We've got those lake pipes. There's the insert for the back roll pan. We also have the Fairlane emblem for the trunk, as well as the 2-piece hood one. The gear shift lever here. Okay, that's the antenna. And we've got a rear view mirror, a little tiny one right there. And then we've got the front bumper for the stock and the rear bumper for the stock, as well as the handle that goes across the Victoria here. And there's the Mercury swoosh, the Canadian goose wings. And then we've got the custom front. And this is the one where the bumper goes through the center of the grille. A lot of good grille texture on here for Pete if he wants to use that in something. Not too sure, but because you can't see through it. But anyway, there it all is. It does look great. There's some cool stuff on here. I can't wait to try this out on that grille. I do like the Lincoln style taillights out back here. They're also kind of cool. Turning it over, some mold marks right on there. Just sand them out, paint that all flat black. Some up here on the handle, so make sure that that's clear. Otherwise, it's not going to fit on the roof too well. Same as the sail panels. You can fill those and then use your mold tool pen on the back so that you can't see it through the windows on the side. Again, some really cool stuff. I really like chrome in kits. Don't know about you, but it sure does dress up the model. Here's our clear components, including separate glass, which is always nice in kits. We have the headlights, and like I was saying before, north, south, east, and west, and not off at funny angles. These are the little side windows for the doors. We also have the roof, and that's for our Victoria, sunroof, moonroof, whatever it's called. We've got our glass, the rear window, and the front window. And then we've got our tail lights. So we've got the stock ones, we've got the bullets here, and then we've got the little Lincoln ones. So just taking a look at this, very simplistic, of course. You can see the bullets coning outward toward my thumb. There they are on the side view. Again, some really cool stuff. Flat here for the stock ones, but then they also kind of pop up a little bit. And then we've got these headlights right there with the pattern molded in them. Again, really nice looking stuff. You'll have to clean this up a little bit because, well, I will anyway, in the 89 version, because this was not in a bag. But I know the new one would be, because round 2 puts everything in bags so nothing gets scratched. Now here's a real blast from the past. Being a 1989 AMT Ertl kit, we have some wonderful Firestone Supreme tires here, which were the updated version from the Firestone tires from before, the ones that are in the 32 Fords and that. This one has a nice pie crust edge to it. It also says Firestone Supreme up in here, has a little Firestone logo, and the treads go right around, and this would be a bias ply tire, as I was talking about in earlier videos. Bias ply tires would look like this on the inside. So here we have a cross-section of a bias ply tire, and these are also known as cross-ply tires, because as you can see, the strands in the plies start at the outer edge and then come in tight into the center, and they would be coming in tight on the other side as well. But basically, when this one goes in on the other side and overlaps the initial one, they form a cross pattern in there like that, and that of course is the cross ply in your bias ply tire. Now the sidewalls on here would have been very strong. They would be 6 plies, whereas the tread may be 1 or 2 ply. So what's happening here is you've got basically like 2 rubber walls that are vertically straight up and down on the tire as it's rolling around, and then where the tread is hitting horizontally, because the plies are weak, the tread is going like this, while these sidewalls are really strong on the sides. Whereas with our modern radial, it's 6 ply where the tire contacts, and it's 2 or 3 ply on the sides, so that the sides are flexing, but the tread is locked straight and going straight. Whereas with this, if there's a crack on the road with that tread going like this, that tread finds a crack and starts following it into the road. And that's why these old cars would waver from side to side occasionally, because these tires are following the crack, while the sidewalls are keeping it nice and rigid and straight and in line. So in addition to the Firestone Supremes, we also have my favorites, the Goodyear Blue Streak drag racing special tires. But you have to watch out for some of these now, because in certain years this mold for this tire was getting really tired. Sounds kind of funny. And in a lot of cases, the center hole was not center. It was actually out of alignment. So some of these tires would go, in your model kit. So you got to make sure that if you get these, that the center is perfect on them. Otherwise, you'll get a lot of tire bounce. These would also be bias tires back in the day. So they may have had a really strong sidewall, like 6 ply in here or something on the sidewalls. But remember, because of the bias construction, the tread is really loose, so there's a lot of smoke show going on at high speeds. Also, you got to watch your metal axles. I noticed this one is bent right in here. So just be careful with these things. And like I was saying, take your file and round these edges on these things, because you can feel they're just sheared straight off, so there's a lot of burr around them, and when you push them into the wheel, that burr will cut into the plastic, and you don't really want it cutting in the plastic, because it can also cause the metal axle to drift off at a slight angle, so your wheel always has a wobble in it, and because the burr is in there, you just make the hole bigger if you need to pull it out. So if you round that edge with your file, it'll go in nice and easy, and if it has to come out, it'll come straight out. But in my case, I got to find myself a new metal axle or try to hammer this straight, which is always a pain. Now we get into the decal sheet, and we've got these really wonderful looking yellow stripes, and you'll have to paint your car a darker color in order to make these stand out. Don't paint it yellow. Anyway, you could paint it like a light yellow. But we have these Washington, D.C. license plates on here. They're not the Ontario plates that Model Car Minion is noted to use. We also have the I Love Model Cars, which includes AMT and MPC right there. But overall, these are very basic looking decals. It looks like this would be the cutaway, which would go on the bottom of the door panel. This comes up the side, and this goes up into the tops of the fenders. Very basic decals. They will look good on your car if you choose to use them, but they are very late 80s, early 90s for sure. Now once you lay out those yellow decals, they should look like this on the side of your car. As you can see, it is very late 80s, early 90s, kind of Boyd Coddington era. But overall, if you do it right, they'll look nice, and they should open when you open the door. Here's my build of the AMT Ertl 1956 Ford Crown Victoria, and this build was done when I was really young, like maybe 12 to 14, somewhere in that ballpark. And you can see that I brush painted it, but I only applied one coat. There are some ghosts in here, basically. And the light cream color is the actual plastic the model was molded in. Here's one of the ghosts kind of coming up. It's all weak right around in there. If I had to put 2 coats or maybe 3 of that brown on there, you wouldn't be able to tell. But overall, it wasn't a bad build. I remember it going together quite nicely. Some things I discovered on the real car is right here in the tail fin. That would have been a backup light. And then there was a red dot up top here. So some pretty simple stuff, basically. No license plate, and the doors actually open, and here, if I'm careful, they open up quite nicely. I've got a bunch of fingerprints on the glass. I guess I couldn't help it back then. Overall, though, it looks good. And we also have posable front wheels, so I can carefully push these the other way. At least I got this part of it right. Let's see. Well, anyway, it's kind of odd. It doesn't want to turn on the one front bit, but if I flip it around here, you can see that it's turned in right there. These hubcaps do really remind me of my dad's 1974 Buick. Overall, though, the kit is quite nice. So when I build this again, I'm going to be building it into the Mercury, not this kit, but the one I just unboxed. And that'll have the seagull right in there, and this portion will have to be cut off and glued to the hood. Here you can see into the engine bay, and I noticed that my air cleaner is crooked in there, hopefully not the whole engine, but you can see the nice battery, the blower for the heater motor, and the little windshield wiper bag, the little white thing sitting on the inner wheel arches. Now, when I build the new version of this, that cross front brace should be black, and I do believe the wheel arches are as well. The firewall is actually the body color, so some of that is correct. Now here I have the glass, and I did touch the glass on the roof with a bit of glue, as you can see there, floating around. Also, just where that windshield wiper is, there's some more glue in there. But again, I was quite young when I built this. Out back, we have that wonderful V8 emblem for the Ford. And on the Mercury Meteor, that emblem is a little bit different. It does have the little meteor blast in the center. Underneath, you can see that if you take your time with this, you can come up with a really nice looking model. Now that blue color is not quite correct. That's more 70s Ford, late 60s. There's the posable wheels in action. So again, be careful not to get glue up in there. You can see the wonderful mufflers. Now the exhaust pipes, I left them flat black. I didn't really know as a kid, eh? And there's the springs and that drive shaft. And again, we've got the gas tank in the back, as well as a spare tire holder. So overall, if you take your time with this and do it right, you can also have a great looking model. Here's what the interior looks like with the front door open. I mean, this is really the best shot I can give you guys, but you can see that the seat was painted with a Tester's flat brown on the sides as well as the paneling, and then I used that wood color, I think it's 1140 gloss brown, on the rim of the steering wheel as well as the top of the dashboard. Top of the dashboard looks more wood than it would as the real car. Of course, that would be a solid brown if it was the case. Also, my gauges are white in there, which they would have been different. And you can see the dangling floor pedals down below. They do cover up the automatic style, drum brake pedal. They cover that over pretty well, but you can still see it if you look for it. Also, the bread handle here for the Victoria, the bread box handle, it was a bit tricky to glue on, but if you take your time with it, you can actually make it line up pretty nicely. Okay, Danny, let's say goodbye to everybody out there. Bye-bye, and we'll see all of you in the next video.